Today is March 23rd, 2026. Welcome back to Now My Go channel. The AI world has gone completely off the rails in the best possible way. Trillion-watt chip fabs, orbital data centers, AI agents running solo companies, open source drama, and a gaming industry that can't quite decide if it actually wants AI. Let's break it all down. Sources for these stories come from outlets like Engadget, The Verge, South China Morning Post, Unwire, CNET, Tech News, and more, and I'll name them as we go. Let's start with the biggest flex of the week. Elon Musk's new chip empire plan. Stories 1, 2, and 3 cluster together. Musk's Terafab, a $20 billion chip bet on Earth and in space. This first cluster comes from Engadget Tech News, The Verge's AI section, and Tech News in Taiwan, all published on March 22, 2026. According to Engadget, Musk announced something called Terafab in a live stream on X. It's a joint project between Tesla, SpaceX, and xAI that he claims will be the largest chip manufacturing facility ever. The stated goal, to produce enough chips every year to deliver a terawatt of computing power. Engadget reports the project is estimated to cost at least $20 billion and will start with an advanced technology fab in Austin, Texas, where Tesla is already headquartered. Musk says current chip suppliers like Samsung, TSMC, and Micron are only able to cover about 2% of what Tesla and SpaceX will need in future compute. His quote from the stream, according to Engadget, "We either build the Terafab or we don't have the chips. And we need the chips, so we're going to build the Terafab." The Verge's AI coverage, also on March 22nd, adds nuance. They say the Terafab plant in Austin will be jointly run by Tesla and SpaceX, and the chips are meant for robotics, AI, and even space-based data centers. But The Verge also points out the obvious. Building a cutting-edge chip fab is one of the hardest, most capital-intensive things you can do. It takes years, billions of dollars, and extremely specialized equipment and talent. And as Bloomberg notes via The Verge, Musk has zero background in semiconductor manufacturing and a long history of over-promising on timelines. So on one side, you've got this huge vision. Chips for Tesla's full self-driving, for Optimus humanoid robots, and a separate, more durable chip line for space. On the other side, you've got people asking, can he actually pull this off, or is this another Hyperloop-style announcement? The Taiwan outlet Tech News, in an article also dated March 22nd, zooms in on the space angle. They highlight that Musk isn't just talking about a big fab, he's talking about unleashing massive peta, or exascale AI compute in space. Earlier this year, SpaceX applied to the US FCC to launch up to 1 million satellites to form what Musk calls an orbital data center. The idea is build chips on Earth, then put huge amounts of AI compute in orbit, powered by the sun, to serve both Earth and future off-world operations. If you connect these three sources, Engadget, The Verge, and Tech News, you get a full picture. Musk wants vertical integration from chip design to fabrication to satellites to a literal orbital AI cloud. Whether he can execute is an open question, but the ambition level is clearly off the charts. Story 4. Huawei's Atlas, 350 claims 3 times. Nvidia H20 performance in some scenarios. While Musk is trying to build his own fabs, China is busy pushing alternative AI hardware. From Hong Kong tech outlet Unwire HK. In a piece published March 22nd, 2026, Huawei unveiled a new AI accelerator called the Atlas 350, powered by their Ascend 950 PR chip. This was announced at Huawei's China Partner Conference 2026 on March 21st. Unwire reports that Huawei is claiming the Atlas 350's compute performance is up to 3 times that of Nvidia's H20 in certain scenarios. If that benchmark holds up in real-world workloads, that's a direct challenge to Nvidia in markets where Huawei can sell freely. The Atlas 350 is pitched for data centers and large-scale AI training and inference, and it fits into China's broader push to build a domestic AI stack, homegrown chips, homegrown frameworks, and less reliance on US tech. When you line this up next to Musk's Terafab plans, you can see the global theme. Everyone is scrambling to secure compute, either by building their own fabs or by building alternative chips. Story 5. Alibaba's Joe Tsai says China's AI edge is power plus open source plus supply chain. Staying in China, let's talk about why that AI ecosystem is evolving so fast. The South China Morning Post's tech and economy coverage in an article published March 22, 2026, reports on a speech by Alibaba chairman Joe Tsai at the China Development Forum 2026 in Beijing. According to SCMP, Tsai says China's recent AI breakthroughs come from three main factors. First, a strategically strengthened power grid. AI is basically electricity plus math. If you want to run massive data centers and train huge models, you need a ton of stable, cheap power. Tsai argues that China has invested heavily in grid infrastructure to support that. Second, a commitment to open source models. China's AI community has been leaning heavily on open source large language models and sharing improvements. That speeds up innovation, lets smaller players build on top of strong baselines, and reduces dependence on any single foreign vendor. Third, a complete manufacturing supply chain. From chips and networking gear to servers and cooling systems, you can source almost everything domestically. That's a huge advantage in a world where, as Tsai puts it, geopolitical complexities are deeply affecting supply chain security and the sharing of technological achievements. So while the West is worried about Nvidia bottlenecks and export controls, Tsai's message, as reported by SCMP, is China has power, open source, and a full stack of manufacturing, and that's giving it an edge. Story 6. OpenClaw and one-person AI companies in China. Speaking of open source, SCMP's tech section has another March 22, 2026 story that shows what this looks like on the ground. The rise of one-person companies powered by AI agents. The article focuses on a seller named Stephen Lee from Jiangsu province who runs a cosmetics export business. With the rise of a popular AI agent framework called OpenClaw, he hired 4 AI employees. SCMP describes how it works. One AI agent handles 24/7 customer service on WhatsApp, answering real-time inquiries. Another AI agent is a digital sales rep, generating price quotes and deals. A third agent tracks order statuses and ensures transparency. A fourth handles operations and back-end tasks. So 1 human, 4 AI staff, and a business that can now scale across time zones without adding real headcount. This isn't just a cute anecdote. SCMP notes that with frameworks like OpenClaw and strong government support for innovation, China is seeing a wave of ultra-lean, one-person or micro-team companies that look more like orchestrators of AI agents than traditional firms. That's a glimpse of a future where small players can punch way above their weight class because they're effectively managing fleets of autonomous workers. Story 7. Rakuten's AI 3 and the DeepSeek open source controversy. Now, let's look at what happens when open source is powerful, but credits and licenses get fuzzy. Hong Kong tech site Unwire HK. In another article dated March 22, 2026, covers a brewing controversy around Japanese giant Rakuten. On March 17th, Rakuten announced a new Japanese large language model called Rakuten AI 3. It was presented as their latest in-house model for Japanese language tasks. But as Unwire reports, technical folks quickly dug into the configuration files on Hugging Face and noticed something strange. The architecture looked almost identical to DeepSeek v3, an open source model from Chinese AI company DeepSeek. Even more problematic, Unwire says that when Rakuten released their model, they apparently removed the original open source license notice from DeepSeek 5.3. In other words, it looked like they took an open source base, stripped out attribution and licensing terms, and rebranded it as Rakuten AI 3. The open source community was not happy. There was strong backlash on social media and developer forums. When asked by reporters about the base model, Unwire says Rakuten refused to disclose the foundation, simply calling it not public. This story ties directly into what Joe Tsai was praising. Open source models accelerate innovation, but they also come with licenses that require attribution and sometimes share-like terms. If big companies start quietly rebranding open models without credit, that could chill the entire open source ecosystem. So we've got attention. Open source as a strategic advantage, but also open source as a legal and ethical minefield when companies don't play by the rules. Stories 8 and 9. AI everywhere at GDC except in the actual games. Let's move to the gaming world, where AI is both hyped and heavily resisted. The Verge's AI section published a piece on March 22nd, 2026 about this year's Game Developers Conference, GDC 2026. Their takeaway: AI was absolutely everywhere at the conference, except in the finished games themselves. According to The Verge, the show floor was full of vendors pitching generative AI tools, systems that generate pixel art fantasy worlds on the fly, AI-driven NPCs that talk like chatbots, and even tools that can produce entire simple games from text prompts. Tencent, for example, demoed a pixel art fantasy world generated by their AI tools. Razer showed an AI assistant for QA that can automatically log bugs in shooter games. Google DeepMind gave a standing room only talk about playable AI-generated spaces. So the tools are there, but The Verge points out that when you look at the actual games being announced or shown, AI features are surprisingly absent. Developers they spoke to were either experimenting quietly or staying away from marketing AI because of player backlash, legal concerns, or quality issues. CNET's tech news section backs this up in a separate article, also on March 22nd, 2026, titled Generative AI in Gaming is Here, but Facing Pushback from Gamers and Developers. CNET reports that Google was loudly promoting Gemini-powered game tools at GDC, but the industry still hasn't found that one killer use case that both players and devs love. A lot of gamers don't want AI-generated voices replacing human actors, or AI art replacing human artists. Developers are worried about copyright, about the quality of AI content, and about the backlash from their own communities and staff. So the pattern from both The Verge and CNET, AI is becoming a standard part of the game development toolbox for prototyping, QA, maybe background assets, but it's not yet the main selling point of games. We're in a kind of quiet adoption phase, AI behind the scenes, not on the box art. Story 10. Inside OpenAI's harness engineering, engineers don't write code, they design agent environments. Finally, let's talk about how AI is changing the way AI itself is built. A WeChat article on mp.weixen.qq.com published March 22nd, 2026 takes a deep dive into something called harness engineering at OpenAI. According to this piece, OpenAI is actively trying to transform software engineering from humans directly writing and editing code into humans designing environments in which AI agents reliably do the coding. In other words, instead of a traditional engineer opening an editor and typing functions, a harness engineer at OpenAI is more like an architect of systems. They define the problem space, constraints, evaluation tests, feedback loops, and tools that an AI agent will use to generate and maintain the actual code base. So the job shifts from write this function to create the harness that ensures an AI agent can write, test, and refactor that function safely and repeatedly. The WeChat article frames this as a fundamental reimagining of software engineering work. When you connect this back to SCMP's story about one-person companies hiring AI staff and to Musk's plans for orbital AI data centers, you can see the broader arc. We're moving from humans using tools to humans managing fleets of agents and huge amounts of automated compute. The leverage per person is going way up, but so is the complexity of what they're responsible for. Bringing it all together, from Engadget, The Verge, and Tech News, we see one vision of the future. Musk trying to own the entire AI compute stack, from chips to satellites, with Terafab and Orbital data centers. From Unwire and Huawei's Atlas 350, and from South China Morning Post reporting on Joe Tsai, we see another China doubling down on domestic hardware, power infrastructure, open source models, and full supply chains to build its own AI superpower. From SCMP's OpenClaw story and the WeChat deep dive into OpenAI's harness engineering, we see the rise of AI agents as real workers and engineers, turning one-person operations into AI orchestrated micro-enterprises. From Unwire's Rakuten and DeepSeek controversy, we're reminded that open source is incredibly powerful, but only if everyone respects licenses and attribution. Otherwise, the trust that underpins that ecosystem starts to erode. And from The Verge and CNET's coverage of GDC 2026, we see a creative industry that's surrounded by AI tools, but still negotiating where and whether AI truly belongs in the final product. Players and devs are pushing back, forcing a more thoughtful, slower integration. All of these stories point in the same direction. AI is no longer just about smarter models. It's about who controls the compute, who controls the power, who controls the supply chain, and who controls the rules around open source and creative work. It's about humans shifting from direct creators to orchestrators of agents and infrastructure. If you want to dive deeper, check the original reporting and Engadget Tech News on Musk's Terafab announcement, The Verge's AI and games coverage around Terafab and GDC 2026. Tech News analysis of Terafab and space-based compute Unwire, HK on Huawei Atlas 350 and the Rakuten AI 3 controversy, South China Morning Post on Joe Tsai and OpenClaw, CNET on generative AI pushback in gaming, and the WeChat article on OpenAI's harness engineering at mp.weishan.qq.com. I'll link all of those sources in the video description so you can read the full articles and form your own views. If you found this roundup useful, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next AI news breakdown. Let me know in the comments, which of these trends excites you the most? Orbital data centers, one-person AI companies, or AI that writes most of the code? Thanks for watching Know My Code channel, and I'll see you in the next one.